When will taxpayers get their money back?
Would not want to be sitting in Carney's seat having Larry Brock coming at me like that across the aisle. The ghosts of ArriveCan and GC Strategies return to haunt the Liberals. Larry Brock blasts Mark Carney, and the Auditor General reveals the F-35 program has exploded in costs. Mr. Carney, welcome back to Question Period. Let's take a look.
Questions orales. The Honourable Member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
Speaker, today the Auditor General released a scathing audit on the top Arrive scam fraudster GC Strategies. This two-person basement dwelling company feasted on $64 million taxpayer dollars. This was a direct gift from the Liberal government who allowed basic procurement rules to be completely ignored over the last 10 years. Canadians still don't know who did the work, what was done, if they were qualified, if they had security clearances. This is complete government incompetence. The ask is simple. When will taxpayers get their money back?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Oh, it's great to see Mr. Larry Brock stand up and speak again in Question Period. And really says something that he's leading off the lineup today with the questions against Mark Carney. As he said, the report was released today about the over $60 million Arrive scan that we covered in depth, and we still have that playlist if you want to follow through as we learned all of the ridiculous statements and government cover-up as we proceeded through that investigation a couple of years ago. But this is what Canadians want to know. Where's our money? Why did it cost the government over $60 million to build an app that should have been built for a few $100,000? I can actually say this now. At my organization, we build apps. They did not cost $60 million. Every single one of them cost under $100,000 to make. Were they as complicated and wide-reaching as the ArriveScan app? Not quite, but still, it doesn't cost that much. So Canadians absolutely want to know where the heck their money is. And we'll be covering the Auditor General's report in a future video, so stay tuned for that.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question. I thank the Auditor General for her service. I note that GC Strategy has been prohibited from government contracts for 7 years, and it's that standard, the minimum. As a member of Canada's new government and a new member of Parliament, we will uphold higher standards, Mr. Speaker.
What a weak answer. Do you remember me telling you in the previous video where I was covering Carney, where one of his big problems during Question Period is that he listens to the heckles? You can see it right there. It interrupted him a couple of times. So yes, GC Strategies was barred from contracts for 7 years. That was an announcement released just this last week. But that's great. So they're not going to get any government contracts. Where's our money?
The Honourable Member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
Mr. Speaker, shockingly, the very same Liberal ministers who had their fingerprints all over the Arrive scam are still in cabinet today. Right. Namely the Jobs Minister, the U.S. Trade Minister, and his Foreign Affairs Minister. Their lack of ministerial responsibility is both negligent and inexcusable. The fraudulent payment of $64 million isn't just about reckless spending. It's a total waste of taxpayer dollars and a betrayal of Canadians who are living through a cost of living crisis. So I ask the Prime Minister again, when will taxpayers get their money back?
That's a good question.
Would not want to be sitting in Carney's seat having Larry Brock coming at me like that across the aisle. Just want to put that out front. And he's right. And this is what we talked about as well. The ArriveScan app blew up because of the cost of living crisis. It wouldn't have, quote unquote, seemed as bad, even though it's $60 million of our taxpayer money, but it wouldn't have seemed as bad when, we were in the later Harper years when we had probably the best middle class in the world. And home prices were half as much. People could afford groceries. People could walk down the street without worried about getting shot. People weren't doubling up and living with their relatives in order to save money. So this is the whole crux of it. It's inexcusable at the best of times, but at the worst of times. When Canadians are struggling to get by and you are literally wasting millions of dollars of taxpayer money that could go to services and programs that actually help Canadians, it's inexcusable.
The honourable member for Selkirk Interlake.
Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General just slammed these Liberals in her report this morning and said what we've known all along. The Liberals have broken our military. Today's F-35 report criticized the Liberals for misleading cost projections that are 50% higher by over $14 billion, ongoing construction delays for necessary infrastructure, ignoring the severe pilot and mechanic shortage, and implementing weak oversight mechanisms. The ministers who were responsible for this debacle are still sitting in here. Will the Prime Minister hold them accountable for this mess?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard that right. The F-35s that we were purchasing, or in the process of purchasing until Mark Carney came in and ordered a review on them, have more than doubled in cost. Now, there were stories about this going back more than a year that this was a complete gaffe by Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government, because when they were first available at a lower cost, the Prime Minister and the Liberals said no, and only later decided to buy them once they had already gone up in cost. So this is a complete shambles in terms of the management of this, and it's no wonder our military is the unfortunate laughingstock of the world. But let's take a look at the story that broke today. Auditor General finds F-35 costs soar amid project delays and pilot shortages. The estimated cost of Canada's incoming fleet of advanced stealth fighters exploded by nearly 50% in just a few years, Auditor General Karen Hogan said Tuesday in a new report. The fighter jet audit was one of 8 tabled in the House of Commons by Hogan and Environment Minister Jerry DeMarco. The reports flag problematic procurement contracts, a backlog in applications for First Nation status, and a delay in reducing the amount of federal office space. An investigation by the Auditor General concluded that costs associated with the F-35 Advanced Fighter Jet program are running $8.7 billion higher than the original estimates. Defense Minister David McGuinty's office sent out a written statement to media that blamed the increased costs on, quote, external economic conditions driven by the COVID-19 pandemic, including global supply chain disruptions, workforce shortages, and increased inflation and foreign exchange rates, end quote. Quote, in combination with increased global tensions and related impacts on the availability and demand for materials, we would not have been able to deliver the full scope of this project under our previous budget, end quote, he said in the statement. But Hogan also warned Tuesday that the program faces, quote, significant risks that could jeopardize the timely introduction of the new fleet. She said the department successfully identified the risks, but has not planned appropriately to mitigate them. That's basically the same thing as saying, hey, a train is coming, but I'm not going to get off the track. Construction of 2 new fighter squadron facilities in Cold Lake, Alberta and Bagotville, Quebec is running 3 years behind schedule. The report says the facilities will not be ready until at least 2031 because the department needs to do, quote, redo important elements of their design. The department started planning the new facilities in 2020 before the government had settled on the F-35. The aircraft comes with significant infrastructure security requirements. This is what happens when you have people who have no idea how to manage money in charge of a whole lot of money. So they decided to build new aircraft facilities before they even settled on the type of aircraft that they are going to actually buy. Doesn't sound like a great idea, does it? Never mind the fact that they didn't lock in these purchases when the aircraft were actually cheaper. No. No, they waited until they went up almost 2 or 3 times in price and then decided to buy them. And then even then, the cost overruns are astronomical at this point. And we still don't have any jets.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to know if the member opposite holds himself accountable for letting military spending fall below 1% of GDP. That's right. When the Conservatives were in government. This government has doubled military spending in cash terms. We are meeting our NATO obligations this year, leading from the front.
The honourable member for Selkirk Interlake.
Prime Minister, we actually delivered for our military. We bought brand new 5 CF-18 Bullmasters, new Hertz, new Leopard tanks, new Chinook helicopters. We delivered. Instead, what we got here is the Auditor General report referenced her 2018 report on the Canada's fighter jets. That report said the biggest obstacle to meeting operational requirements was a shortage of fighter pilots and technicians. Over the last Liberal decade, the Liberals have worsened this capability gap through mismanagement and completely ignoring the Auditor General's recommendations. So the question is, the foreign minister who is responsible for the military back in 2018 is still in his cabinet. Why?
Excellent retort by James Bazan. Carney tries to turn it around and say, well, after a slight pause, the Conservatives, dropped military spending and yada, 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 which they did, which they are not off the hook of. However, what James Bazan did say is, we at least actually delivered new equipment. The Liberals have done nothing except institute DEI policies. That's what they've done. Where are these jets that our fighters need? Where are our fighter pilots? We're still using F-18s. Remember, those are the same jets that were used in the movie Independence Day. And that was a 90s movie. A 90s movie, folks. So that's how old the planes are that our fighters are actually asked to use. It's an embarrassment. And what's even more embarrassing is we can't even get them new planes.
Mr. Speaker, I was proud to stand yesterday with the Minister of National Defence, the Chief of the Defence Force, and announce the largest increase in military expenditure in decades. Building our military strong, building our military with Canadian technology, Canadian jobs, Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum. That's what the review of the F-35 is about. That's what the future of this country is about.
Canadian technology. What fighter jets do we have that are Canadian made in Canada, Mr. Carney? I'll give you a hint. 0. What significant military equipment is manufactured in Canada that we're going to buy? Yeah, there is a few things, but they're more like APCs and which are armored personnel carriers and light tanks and things like that. We don't have the equipment that we need. If we did, we wouldn't be purchasing it from the Americans in the first place. But no. What Mark Carney wants to do is say, well, we shouldn't be sending our money to the US. No, we should be sending it to Europe instead. That's what he wants to do. Isn't that interesting? Makes you wonder what he promised the Europeans when he jetted off to Europe in his first week as Prime Minister after being elected the leader of the Liberal Party, prior to being elected in any riding to have a seat in the House. Makes you really wonder what he's getting.
The honourable member for Edmonton West.
Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General has once again exposed Liberal incompetence, highlighting millions wasted on their good friends and favourite consultants, GC Strategies. Not only have the Liberals not clawed back 1 penny from this scam, every Trudeau minister with his fingerprints on the scandal has been promoted by this Prime Minister. And now the Liberals are planning an extra $26 billion of taxpayer money for their insider consultant friends. Now, how about spend less on your insider friends and invest more in clawing back the money from GC Strategies?
L'honorable ministre de la
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Mr. Speaker, I'll note that in March 2024, my department has terminated all contracts with GC Strategies and has revoked its security clearance so that it renders it ineligible for contracts that require that security clearance. But we went even further. The Office of Supplier Integrity last week determined that GC Strategies was ineligible for 7 years. This is a free, independent process, holding bad actors to account, working exactly as it should, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The honourable member for Edmonton West.
Ended years after they were exposed. Now, $64 million went to Liberal friends at GC Strategies. Rampant sole sourcing of contracts with no justification and projects paid for despite no work being done. Incompetence is so ingrained in this government, they've actually ordered officials to put in writing that they are not violating procurement rules when they're granting contracts. Now the Liberals want $26 billion more for these consultants. When will the Liberals turn off the taps to their friends and focus instead on clawing back the money from this fraudulent GC Strategies?
The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Auditor General for her report and highlight that we have acted on previous reports by the Auditor General, and also from internal audits to increase transparency, increase data collection, increase oversight. But also note, Mr. Speaker, that last year my department has terminated all contracts with GC Strategies, has revoked its security clearance, and as of last week, the Office of Supplier Integrity has rendered a decision making GC Strategy ineligible for contracts for 7 years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So, interesting little exchange there by Mr. Kelly McCauley, who last year was normally the chair of the Government Operations and Estimates Committee, also affectionately known as the Mighty OGO, the only committee that matters. But the exchange just reveals, one thing. So the questions are valid. Why aren't you clawing the money back that was, by all accounts, even the Auditor General, it was an overpayment and there was fraud being committed. There's an RCMP investigation that was that was started, probably still underway. So why aren't we getting our money back? And the response from the Liberals is, well, so we terminated the contracts with GC Strategies and they can't bid for 7 years. Why they can bid at all is another question after 7 years. And the process is running as intended. Right. So the process is intended to never get millions of dollars back that the government paid to a company that was committing fraud, at least according to Mr. Brock and to the committees that were investigating this for over a year and a half. Massive investigation into this. And you're saying that it's working as intended because we don't want to get money back for Canadians. Well, it's almost a saving grace that the Conservatives aren't in government at this particular point, because all of these Auditor General reports, they are not really making the Liberals look too nice, are they? They are calling into question and putting bullseyes on the lack of fiscal management, pardon me, of all of the ministers that are currently in Carney's cabinet, that he saw fit to maintain them. So I think this is coming to a head in terms of all of the dirty laundry is really starting to bubble up now. Justin Trudeau might be counting his blessings that he is not the Prime Minister at this point.